Well, good evening. This is Leonard Lucas, and welcome to the Lucas Report. I have a special guest with me, Brother Boateng, and we're going to be talking about some live events, things that have been happening over the past couple of days in the nation. As we know, there were some several events that happened in Minnesota and Dallas and in Baton Rouge, and we're going to take some time to talk about the events. And we're here live on the Lucas Report. This is our actual second broadcast that we've been doing, and we're so excited to have Brother Kobe with us. And Brother Kobe, just tell the people a little bit about yourself.
All right, my name is Kwabena Boateng. I'm founder and president of African Diaspora Nation. And our passion is really to be the embodiment of a guiding light for a global African renaissance. And that entails rebranding the identity of an African and black people globally. So that's my passion. I'm also an engineer, a thinker, a writer, and a speaker. And I'm thankful that you have me here today. The nation is in turmoil, and I think we need to face the situation directly and do a thorough analysis in a way which brings light, which engenders transformation. All right.
Absolutely,
Me.
absolutely. And tell us a little bit about your nonprofit. I believe it's a nonprofit organization, African Diaspora Nation. How long has it been started, and what made you start this type of company to say, I want my people to know a little bit about Africa and about the history, the religion, the culture, and things like that.
All right. So African Diaspora Nation has been in existence since September 2014.
Okay.
It came about as a result of a realization that there is a fierce urgency today for people of African descent and Africans to reconcile because our destinies are tied to each other. If by nothing at all, by our color, because the brand identity of black people is the same everywhere.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And within that context, we need to come together and create the conditions which allow our psychological, mental, and economic liberation as a people.
Wow, now that's powerful. That's powerful. Understanding that we've had some recent events that happened, stuff like what happened in Minnesota, things like what happened in Baton Rouge, and also recently with the Dallas shooting, and also I heard there's a shooting out. There was a shooting of two sheriff officers in Michigan as well. Knowing this that happened, and you're seeing how different African people are taking this emotion of what's been going on. We've seen people that want to do peaceful protests as well. We've seen people who wanted to take a little more hands-on approach. Seeing this, and when you got a chance to see what is going on in America, what did you assess about the problem and the situation? And what do you think we need to do for the short term to kind of handle this situation and problem that's happening in America?
The perception of America outside the United States is one of almost heaven on earth. And that perception has been nurtured over time through the media and a host of strategies, really.
Yes, sir.
Now we are in a time where, thanks to Facebook and social media, we are able to sunshine the areas which the perfection,
Right.
all right, of the union, which makes the United States is lacking. All right. So the world is surprised. Africans are concerned. Will we be safe
Yeah.
in America? All right. Because as I said, we all look the same.
Right.
We have the same roots, and the problem of blacks in America is a problem of blacks globally, really. All right.
Wow.
So we need to work together, be reconciled internally first, and then together as a people, then together as humanity, to be able to bring an end to this unfortunate events which happened. Zero injuries and fatalities and
Wow.
environmental incidents at the hands of police is attainable.
Yes, sir.
Zero is attainable.
Wow, that's awesome. Just to hear what you're saying right now, and how we need to collectively become unified in our approach. And I think we've been lacking in that approach for many of years. Now, what do you think is that problem? Is it because some of our leaders, like Martin Luther King, like Malcolm X, we're not seeing new leaders rise up and take the cause, or is it just people are not coming together collectively, becoming unified? Everybody is separate, and now we have more groups, more civil rights groups, more religious groups than maybe they had 60 or 100 years ago when there was just one Baptist church, one Methodist church. But now we have these collective groups. Do you think we need to be more unified socially together as a unit, or do you think leadership has missed his part, and that's the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing, the tragedies that we're seeing today?
That's a very critical question. The question of leadership. Uh, Strong leadership is founded on character and integrity.
Yes.
All right. And strong leadership and influence doesn't necessarily entail one being in a position of political power and all.
Yes, sir.
Strong leadership is founded on strong character and integrity. And out of that, you able to influence people for the common good. And yes, we have been lacking in that area, but we also need to be mindful that leadership is not just the preserve of a few. We are all leaders, albeit with different spheres of influence. All right, I am a leader in my household.
Yes, sir.
So leadership starts at the basic and fundamental building block or socializing agency of humanity. We all came from homes. Leadership starts in the home. It starts with fathers. It starts with mothers.
Sure.
All right. Then leadership goes to the community level. Then leadership goes to a national level. Then a continental and a global level. So we are all leaders. We have different spheres of influence, and it is a high calling. It requires a strong character or a desire to do the right thing, selfless and self-transcendent paradigm of service to people. And the approach to leadership needs to change, and the scope of leadership needs to change to be able to move to where we need to be. All right. Talking about unity and reconciliation. Unity and reconciliation needs the establishment of a global vision,
Okay.
which we all buy into.
Yes.
All right. That vision is important. And then it's important that we all see ourselves as various pieces of the puzzle. That brings about the realization of the global vision. All right. So I need to know myself. You need to know yourself. You may be the other piece of the puzzle which I need to engage for the picture which serves the common good to be served.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think I'll start with those.
Okay, that's a very good point. One thing in the black community, especially with businesses, and especially with leaders in the black community, a lot of times when you see people have their own business, black people don't want to support the businesses. A lot of times when we see leaders like black pastors and black things, we see a lot of times the congregation don't want to support the leader, as well with tithes and things like that, as well with coming to local church events, because they feel that the leader is already blessed, excuse me. And so far as our leadership, how can we get people to realize that they are leaders, but they just need a spearhead to come together collectively and unified together, understanding that you are a leader, you are someone great, you have purpose, you have destiny, but we need someone to be a spearhead of the movement, be someone to be an ambassador of the movement? How can we get our people to understand that you are a leader, but sometimes we need to be unified in our approach? We need to have an ambassador. How can we get our people to understand that?
First of all, I think from that spiritual perspective, it is said that the greatest will be those who serve.
Yes, sir.
All
Yes, sir.
right, the greatest will be those who serve. So, order is required for the realization of any great vision. All right, order is important, and within an organizational structure, there is need for those segregation of authorities. There's a need for various offices. There's need for structure. All right, and without structure, we will all be creating chaotic
Right.
circumstances. All right, so we need to see this within the context of, say, a symphony. You have various parts in a symphony. You may have the drum section, the string section, and each section has a leader who coordinates the performance and the production of each section.
Yes, sir.
Now, the whole symphony has a conductor who leads the symphony. All right, the conductor has a view of the global vision. He has a view of the sound, the harmony that needs to be produced by those various sections. All right, and that is the philosophy we must get clarity on. All right, that it is not about you nor me. It is about the delivery of the song. It is the delivery of harmony. It is the delivery of what serves the common good.
Absolutely.
And within that structure, there necessarily needs to be leadership. And the greatest is not necessarily the guy who leads it all. As Christ said, the greatest is the one who serves, maybe even unseen. Right?
Right.
We need to teach our children that respect for authority, respect for order. Without that basic foundation, we're not going to go anywhere. We're just going to be pulling each other down because we'll all be fighting to be the guy on top.
Right.
We call it the PhD syndrome in Africa. Pull him down.
Wow.
Syndrome. That I may be the one on top.
Yes, sir.
You know, like crabs in a bucket.
Yes.
With no order, they all trying to pull each other and climb over each other to get to
Absolutely.
the top.
Absolutely.
Right. We need to understand that we need to subjugate ourselves to the common good and to order. All right.
Wow. Now, as a people, do you think we've kind of lost our focus and our approach? Going back to those of Denmark Vesey, going to those back to those of Marcus Garvey, going to back to those, like we said, of Martin Luther King, going to back when in the 60s and the 50s when they had the black unions, and now that we've came out of segregation, now that we've came out of slavery, and now we've kind of geared and navigated to our own approach. Do you think we kind of missed the mark in a certain way now that, in a sense, people say we are free now, we have the right to purchase when they didn't have the right to purchase when they were segregated, or go on the bus. The reason why they boycotted the bus because they didn't have the same privileges. Now that we have certain privileges, and people have made their own community organizations, have made their own political organizations, and have separated themselves. Do you think we have missed the mark as people, separating ourselves and kind of saying, I'm going to go over here, you go over there, don't bother me? We don't come together collectively until we see things like this, where you see mass shootings or people getting shot with police brutality or police killing people. Do you think we missed the mark as a people because we have not unified, and we only unify in those big situations when something like this happens?
I think it's a journey.
Yes.
And in that journey that we must necessarily embark on, we need to pause every now and then for I'll say, station identification, milestone identification along the journey.
Sure.
And we have one common goal, and that goal must be worked on every day. All right. So, if our goal is a more reconciled and united states of America,
Yes, sir.
all right, a more perfected union, we must be doing things systematically every day, which drives us closer to that goal. Otherwise, we just have a dream,
Right.
and we're not never going to get there. All right. So you are absolutely right. There are two frontiers of engagement to perfect the union, and it is the frontier of government, the frontier of state, federal, and community governance. All right, that is the system frontier. Then we have the individual or family frontier. All right, we must be working on these two parallel frontiers as we work for the evolution of systems,
Yes.
be it in policies, in training of police officers, of citizen development, and all that. We also need to be focused on the strengthening of our families. We need to be focused on the strengthening of our union as a people.
Yes.
All right. And it starts from first within our community, and then within the global community, irrespective of race, color, and the like. But we need to start from our Jerusalem. Then we go to the Judea. Then we go to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
And it starts from the house. It starts with we have an issue with our brand. All right. Whether we created the issue or not, there has been an assault on the black brand globally.
Wow.
And we need to see this as a brand integrity issue. We must see ourselves as a corporation. We have competitors, and it has served the interest of a few. All right. And this is not along race lines necessarily,
Right.
but it
Right.
serves the interest of a certain group, that the brand identity of the black man be defaced. All right. And we have to take it upon ourselves to change that perception. All right. And we can only change that perception when we look within,
Right. Right.
because it is in the transformation of our inner world that the outer world will be transformed. You cannot get it outside unless you get it inside.
Wow.
The United States of America we want must first be born in our hearts for it to be reflected on the outside. The union of black people around the world must first be born in the hearts of every black man before it can be reflected in the reality of the outside. Inside, out, not outside, in. We need to stop trying to be united and be united.
Wow.
Let's just be. Enough of the trying. And to be is to be transformed on the inside. And thus, the journey's leadership must be one which is sound in body, soul, and spirit. We need that holistic approach
Yes.
to get where we need to be. Zero is attainable.
Wow. And so and now we see in recent events, white America has said now we have a black president who been reelected, has been elected twice. That we as a black people, we as a black culture are progressing. And on the other hand, we have black Americans saying that Obama is not a black president. He doesn't pass legislation. What would you say about what is going on for us saying that we have progressed, but black America saying, well, in a way, we may have not progressed? Looking at some of the legislation, a lot of Americans become mad in the approach that Obama takes, passing a collective legislation for all and not passing legislation for black people. Now, understanding, I know my father was a former state legislator, knowing that sometimes to get your legislation passed, you have to play the political game. And a lot of black people don't understand that. What would you say to people who say that President Obama is not a black president? He's not a president for blacks, but he's a president for certain groups, LGBT, Wall Street, and things like that. Also, knowing, I think it is kind of our problem because we don't have lobbyists to fight on our behalf. There's no such thing as a black lobbyist or for organizations and for businesses and for political legislation. So, do you think we missed the mark with that? And do you think we need to start establishing that as well?
I think, like I said before, it's a process. Obama is the president of the United States
Correct.
of America. He got there due to the support of a diverse group of people
Correct.
and diverse interests. All right. So he necessarily will be constrained in saying, hey, I need to pass targeted and specific legislation just for a certain section of the union. All right. What his focus and target seems to have been is let's create a level playing field for everybody.
Yes, sir.
Nobody should be discriminated against based on their race, based on their gender, based on anything which is contrary to what a certain section of the populace considers the norm. It is a diverse country, and we need to respect that in that diversity we find our strength and innovative capabilities. So I think I don't agree with the president on every issue,
Right.
but I think he has done pretty well.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Now, as I said, there are two frontiers. The system or the government has a part to play, but so do we. I believe we are at the point where, in addition to the system level advocacy and changes that we want, that we're pushing for in Black Lives Matter and the like, we also need to have a concerted effort internally to progress and evolve both in our educational structures as well as the discharge of our responsibilities
Yes.
on a family level and then a community level. All right. The leadership we have in any country, my opinion is a reflection of the collective character of the nation, and it all starts in the basic building block. So I believe the president, his life doesn't end when he ends his presidency.
Absolutely.
I suspect that we're going to be seeing a different level of advocacy for people of African descent
Okay.
out of office, because I believe that out of office, the constraints will be broken. All right, so I think we're in for some very interesting times
Oh, wow.
in the next 5 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you were talking a little bit about Black Matters, and I wanted to take a little time later in the show, but since you talked about it, I want to go into it right now. And so we've been seeing a lot of people, the big thing on Twitter, Black Lives Matter, and there's been some counter arguments to Black Lives Matter as All Lives Matter. And we've been seeing that a lot from congressmen, conservative congressmen. Even I was reading in this article right here, written by the Wall Street Journal. It says former New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, a Republican, was among the conservative criticizing the movement. When you say Black Lives Matter, that's inherently racist, he says. Black lives matter, white lives matter, Asian lives matter, Hispanic lives matter. That's anti-American. And so when you hear something like that, he's Randolph Giuliani saying something like that. What do you say for him saying that Black Lives Matter, a collective group of people coming together, black people, peaceful protesting, trying to find a solution, and he calls it inherently racist? What do you think about that?
I think it's ignorant, frankly, because it doesn't take into account the actual statistics. All right, we see a disproportionate rate of killings, police killings, amongst uh, blacks in the United States of America. All right, and the emphasis on Black Lives Matter is an amplification of that degree of disparity in the rates of police killings. All right, so it is just for emphasis. All right, and I think to yes, all lives matter, of course, and nobody will deny that, and that's not what is being accentuated. But we're saying that we need to focus on this disproportionate killings
Right.
in the black community. And for that matter, we're saying black lives matter. All right? And we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that uh, the history of the United States has evolved from a place where black lives were not counted as equal
Right.
as white lives, and we, to be totally oblivious of that history and its impact on current events is, I think, disingenuous, right? So, uh, but what should we do when we get these kinds of comments from responsible individuals? We must take it on as a challenge to educate. All right. I admire something Jesus Christ said on the cross as he got nailed by his own people.
Yeah.
He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they
They
do."
do. Amen.
And that should be our attitude to our fellow men who don't seem to get it. All right. We need to take it that they're not willfully ignorant, but they are ignorant nonetheless. And we need to help them to see it based on, to be empathetic to our experience. All right. So it's our challenge.
Yeah.
All right. And that takes me to the question of what is a black life? What is a black life? We need to define that because apparently the brand of a black life has been defaced, and people find it convenient to do atrocious acts based on that defaced brand integrity. All right. So, in addition to the declaration of a black life, I believe it serves us all to define what a black life is. All right. What is the identity of a black life? I think the identity of a black life is love.
Right.
All right. I think we are gems. I think we are a masterpiece. We have gone through some challenges in our history. We have gone through an oppressive phase. We have gone through a phase where we've been liberated, where we have our civil rights, and we are in a phase where we need to enter the promised land of equal treatment of all races, irrespective of background, irrespective of gender, and the like. That is the promised land. That is the concept of a more perfect union. All right. And to get there, it requires transformation
Mm-hmm.
It requires something more than training. It requires a transformation, a metamorphosis
Okay.
on the character level. And this applies to all people who make up these United States, all races, all genders. All right. We need to subjugate ourselves to uh, the vision of a more caring or a very caring and loving society, which was envisaged by the founders.
A key point that you said when you were talking about the ignorance factor, especially among not only just African Americans but among white and a lot of people in this country, in this nation, the fact that people can go home to their suburbs, and the fact that when we talk about white privilege, that whites have the ability to go home and don't have to know anything about a black person. They can go home, they can enjoy their lifestyle because they have the big corporations. But that may not necessarily be the case for a black man who's trying to get a job in society. We understand most of the big businesses and big corporations are controlled by white men. And so or for a black man to maybe get a job or to be integrated into society so that he can thrive and provide a lifestyle for his family, sometimes he has to switch and become something that separates him from his identity as a black man. Sometimes he may have a softer voice because if his voice is deeper, they may take that as a threat. And just like you were saying, it's an ignorance factor that is in society. Even with mainstream media, when mainstream media begins to say things, I'm not going to say the news sites because we're on a live stream, but Americans seem to take a lot of the things that media says as the truth. And sometimes without even doing research, they just say, just like with Philando Castile and with Alton Sterling, they begin to talk about the history of sexual assault and marijuana and all these different things, making these individuals look like they're thugs or look like they're drug dealers or look like all these different things, sexual offenders, and not looking at the big aspect of the picture is that two men were murdered based on a situation where police officers killed them and shot them multiple times on the fact of their racism. And people don't look at that picture. They look at, oh, well, he was a thug. Or, oh, well, he was a sexual offender. And don't look at the fact that people were murdered. And so now you're saying that because he was this, because he was that, you justify that this person should be murdered because of that past dealing. And we don't have to even talk about the statistics where whites with drugs and whites with cocaine and marijuana and the difference between offenses of heroin and marijuana in Louisiana versus cocaine offenses. We don't even have to talk about. We know the statistics in those things. What do you say about those situations where you see our people when something happens like this and a killing happens like this, they look at a past or try to find a past or try to find anything to say that we were put to blame in the matter?
Undoubtedly, there is the phenomenon of white privilege, all right? And it takes an empathetic and caring individual to be able to put themselves in the shoes of a minority group or any minority section of the population. It takes a caring, and such are few, all right? So my personal attitude is we are a gem. We are a masterpiece. White privilege definitely exists.
Yes.
And I cannot, to me, that's an illusionary frontier for me to fight that a white person who refuses to empathize with me, all right, to invest my effort in trying to get them to empathize, I believe is wasted effort. All right. My effort is best applied towards manifesting my true essence as a gem or a masterpiece. My efforts are best directed towards being outstanding. My efforts are best directed, my energies are best directed towards unleashing my true potential. and being of service to my family, my community, my nation, and being true to my native land. All right. That is where my effort, all right, is wisely engaged. And with this wise direction of my energies, the other stuff will take care of itself. The issue of the disproportional allocation of privilege will be taken care of, not by virtue of me ascertaining it, but by virtue of me showing who I truly are, the gem that I am, the gem that we are as a people, the masterpiece that we are as people made in God's image, and having the identity of a loving and caring people. So it's about where will we invest our energies. I believe we need to be wise.
Yes.
And invest our energies into building strong families.
Yes.
Into building strong businesses. Into building an Africa that we can all be proud of. I'm doing well in America, but I think that anytime I look at Africa, the status quo there today gives the people who would like to deface the brand, identity, and integrity of a black man, it gives them an excuse, all right, to draw some conclusions. My energies are best engaged in strengthening and delivering upon my unique purpose and destiny, all right? So that is how, it's an indirect way, but that is how I think we deal with that issue of privilege, because it takes care of itself when we manifest the greatness within us.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I want to kind of divert the subject matter a little bit. We talked a little bit about the ignorance, and we talked a little bit about the ignorance of police departments and police districts having police officers who don't know anything about the community, putting police officers who are just finished training, police training, who may be 23, 24-year-old, maybe Asian, maybe white, and bringing them in these inner city urban communities. They don't know anything about the African American community, and they don't know anything about the culture. They don't know anything about the attitude. We talked about the black swagger. They don't know when a black man, his swagger and his presence, how he begins to convey his message may sometimes be overbearing. And white officers or Asian officers or Latino officers or any officers who has not been in the inner city community can take that as a threat because they don't understand the power of the language and how the black man is trying to convey the message, and they may act upon that threat by using excessive force because of that ignorance. And we talked a little bit about the solution. You had a solution as well, and I had a solution as well. What do you think about a fresh officer coming out of police training and getting put into an inner city neighborhood, not knowing anything about the culture? Do you think that helps, or do you think that's destructive and it makes it things and situations like these instances happen?
First of all, we need to establish the point that it is important for us to progressively break down the divides, all right? So it's important that I don't believe that policing should necessarily be divided by race or the community you are from. We need to look at it from the perspective that the police officer needs development and experience. And that development and experience should be that it makes him professional, that it makes him mature. A mature police officer is a police officer who can operate in a white society, who can operate in a black community and all that. And we must aspire to develop our policemen to be that professional in the discharge of their duties. But what you speak is reality. There is a need for orientation, all right? There is a need for understanding of the culture and the group dynamics,
Yes, sir.
in the domain and space of policing. It is very important There is a need for the building of trust. There is a need for the building of relationships with the key stakeholders in the community. All right, and that needs to happen. But yes, there needs to be an orientation program
Absolutely.
which takes cognizance of the unique culture and the unique giftings of the black community. There needs to be that orientation. You cannot just throw somebody in there and expect them to function, a sink or swim scenario. We need to have a character development program which makes the policeman mature
Right.
into one who is able to function in any community, irrespective of ethnicity, race, gender. A true professional must be able to operate in all this, but it doesn't happen by chance. There needs to be a program, an orientation program, like you said, which gets them into the mold
Yes.
where they're able to professionally discharge their responsibilities without fear.
Wow, absolutely. And we've seen many articles about that, and I like what you said about there has to be a maturing process and an introduction to the community, understanding on both sides collectively with the citizens and the police coming together to have make a common ground. But when you see things like in New York, like quotas, where police have to give tickets, or we've seen stop and frisk, we've seen where police have to have arrest quotas in inner city neighborhoods. When you see things like that, how can that help? Even though an officer knows that he's a mature officer, even though an officer wants to do greater good, but he has the sense that he has a quota and he has to get that arrest for that month. And he sees somebody that may look like me. I have a baseball shirt on, who may be tall and may have a cap on behind my head, and you see somebody like me. Maybe I do have a record before, and he needs to get that arrest, and he needs to get that quota up so that he can look to the system, and they can say that that's an achievement for him, so that he can rise in his ranking, so that he can put food on the table for his family and things like that. Now seeing that with this quota system, with writing tickets, stop and frisk, how can a mature officer do what he needs to do when all these things are being the enemy for his success and growth?
Great question. And again, it amplifies the need for fighting on two frontiers, the system level, right? So here is a perfect example of a system of policies which provide an incentive for wrong behavior. This is an example of a policy which declares that 0 injuries, 0 fatalities, 0 police incidents is not attainable. So you must find something. A truly mature police organization is one which finds itself irrelevant. A truly mature police organization is one which does proactive work with the community.
Yes.
To the point where their reactive work is irrelevant. All right? That is the character of a truly mature police organization. It is one which builds relationships with the communities in which they serve. It is one which nurtures trust. It is one which works with youth, catches them young, and educates them, all right? In collaboration with other community actors like the schools and the families and various civil society organizations, non-profits, the faith-based communities, to work in concert to attain 0. Right? So I totally disagree with that kind of a policy or that kind of a system. I think it gets things lopsided. It provides the wrong incentives, and it is a declaration of the fact that we don't believe that we can have a mature and peaceful community, right? Otherwise, why are you looking for quotas? You're looking for
Right.
stuff.
Right.
It means you don't believe that you can have a peaceful community, so you must by all means find something. And I think that is an example of a policy which needs to be undone, to say the least.
That's good. Now, I know we only have a couple of more minutes, but I definitely want to address this. This is coming from a CBS article, and it was titled, "Are Police Doing Too Much?" Dallas Police Chief David Brown said today police officers grapple with society failures, including mental health, drug addiction, and schooling they are not equipped to handle. Brown stated in his press conference, police were never meant to solve these problems. And Brown says he's asked for part of our democracy as well as the free press to help us out and not put the burden on all law enforcement to resolve these problems. And so when you see situations where there may be a situation where police officers call for mental health, or police officers call because a kid is acting up in school in the urban city community, and we know that when a police officer, there's many calls, so they deal with many different situations. We understand that the psyche of the police officer, you never know what they can be going through as well. We know that there's situations when you see nothing but corruptness, murders, rapes, molestation. When you see that, that has to do something to your psyche. And so, what do we need to do? Do you think there should be more involvement with police, or do you think we need to have more social organizations to help combat against these things so that it can take the burden off the police?
First, powerful question. First of all, the police force in a democracy work for us.
Yes, sir.
All
Sure.
right? They are the operators of an authority that we delegate to them as citizens. All right? But it is insufficient for us to think that by delegating our authorities to the police people to exercise their responsibility of maintaining order and peace in a community, our responsibility has ended. It takes still the collaboration of various groups. All right, the education system, we need to take a total life cycle approach from cradle to adulthood. All the actors from cradle to adulthood of a person must be collaborative agents in the effort to maintain peace and order in our communities. All right. So as I said, faith-based communities, the educational system, the social workers. All right. Our target should be zero, and we must have faith that zero is attainable. And it starts with proactive work. It starts with working within ourselves. And if we having problems, asking for help. It starts with getting to that space, that creative and innovative space internally, that we may be able to manifest it out externally in our communities. All right. Now, granted, that takes a process. It is a maturity thing. So we need to be leveraging the best in technology to remove and design out of civilian police engagements some of the factors which translate into actions which result in police killings. So let's take the example of a police officer stopping someone on the
Yes,
road.
sir.
The police officer gets uncomfortable
Right.
as he approaches the vehicle because for one reason or the other, he's afraid for his life. All right? So there is an emotional factor which has been introduced into the interaction. It can be an emotion of peace. It can be an emotion of fear. And that emotion can be born out of ignorance, that emotion can be born out of history.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Whatever the cause, there can be fear. And when that fear is not well managed, it can translate into unstable actions, which result in a killing or a shooting.
Yes.
So instead of the police officer going to the vehicle to request for a driver's license, insurance, and all that, maybe we should take a robot.
Okay.
Every police officer must have a robot in their vehicle, which now goes to the uh, citizen or the vehicle which has been apprehended and asks for those things, driver's license and all that. In that case, the police officer is staying in his comfort zone in his vehicle. The civilian is staying in his comfort zone in his vehicle, but the exchange is taking place. Everybody is comfortable. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So technology can play a part. We heard of robot being used to blow up
Right.
the
Yes,
shooter.
sir. In the case of Michael Johnson.
In
yes.
the case of Michael Johnson.
Yeah.
All right. To me, robots may be a solution because robots may not get angry. Robots are not afraid.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we need to be humble and appreciate the fact that we are in the process of maturity, but
Yes.
we are not there yet.
Okay.
So let's fall on these technological solutions which design and remove the emotional element out of police and civil society engagements. No. So we need to get into a creative space and come up with answers and solutions which take into consideration the wide array of options, be it psychological, technology, policy innovations,
Yes.
training innovations, which can help us preserve life.
Wow, that's good. That's good. I only have two more questions for you, and then I'm going to ask you just a question for your wife. She is in the studio, and we're going to have her to come up in just a second. With regard, we were just talking about the technology, where there was I believe the bomb that they used to kill Michael Johnson was somewhere between $151,000, the cost of the bomb. As they tried to distract Michael Johnson, it took about 15 minutes or 20 minutes for them to get the parts and things like that. It's a two-part question. Knowing that the cost of technology is so expensive, do you think that this can be effective, knowing that legislation for us conservatives won't want to maybe put up their part to say, let's have every cop have a robot to mitigate this problem, and also maybe the people may not be want to have a robot in the car. Maybe they say, oh well, Michael Johnson, he got bombed by a robot, and so I don't feel, what about if the robot does some type of things and things like that, where it may make me feel uncomfortable. And also, do you think what happened to Michael Johnson after he killed those officers, I believe it was 5 officers and injured 9 other, which is a complete tragedy. We don't condone any of that, but do you think it was justified, his killing, by bombing him, understanding, knowing that I believe the guy name was Dylan in South Carolina, killed 9 people, and they took him out to Burger King afterwards and then brought him to jail? Or do you think the bombing was justified?
I believe human life is precious.
Absolutely.
All human life is precious. And a police life is as equally precious
Absolutely.
as a civilian life. And we need to do our utmost to ensure that life is preserved. But we need to appreciate the fact that there will be circumstances. All right? We need to appreciate the fact that there are circumstances and deficiencies in character and self-control which will make individuals not cooperate in some instances. And in those instances, force may be necessary. All right? So, to me, I'll leave that to the discretion. No, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
In the heat of the moment,
Right.
if the that was thought to be the best course, which preserves the loss of any additional lives,
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's tough to say, but I wouldn't, right? Nonetheless, every effort must be made to preserve human life. And I personally will embrace an emotionless robot than an emotional police officer,
Yes, sir.
because the emotion
Yes, sir.
becomes an avenue for evil
Yes.
to be manifest. All right. And I will rather have a situation where things are maintained neutral
Right.
through the use of technology. I've only given one example,
Yes. Yes.
but I believe there are answers, many more answers and solutions.
Absolutely.
But we need to get into our creative and innovative zones
Okay.
and deal with these.
That's great. That's great. And I don't want to keep things further because I know we got to close up in a couple of more minutes. But I want to just ask one more question. What do you think is the long-term solution to fix this problem of ignorance between the community and police officers and community to mitigate this risk? I know we said with the robots, and we said about a maturity of the police officers and connecting the police officers together with the community and the community with the police officers. But right now we're in a process where there's been two killings of police officers, instance in Washington and with Dallas, and now there's unrest in the nation, and now we're trying to find out people from all different cities, people from all different states are saying. New York is saying, "Will I be next?" New Orleans is saying, "Will I be next?" We know that there's some community meetings that the mayor is having right now to try to figure out how can we make this not happen in New Orleans. And so, because everybody's on edge, what do you think is some short-term solutions and some long-term solutions so that this won't happen in the nation, and so that we can mitigate the risk in inclusion with the technology and with the police officers having a talk with the neighborhood and coming together collectively?
In the short term, I believe that we just need to get calm.
Okay.
We cannot do anything productive when we are not stable. All right. When we are angry. All right. So in the short term, we need to calm down. All right. And get to an evaluation of root cause. Right. And once we get into the evaluation of root causes, we will find out that it is largely, as you said, an issue with ignorance. How do you address ignorance in the long term? Education.
Education, that's right.
And it's not just education where you offering information. It's education which transforms people. Education which transforms the people who become citizens or the police. All right.
Yeah.
So we need to educate our people, and this is not just school education. This is holistic education.
Wow.
Education of the body, the soul, and the spirit. All right. It needs to be holistic. That is the long-term solution. The long-term solution is character and integrity. It's building and guiding and coaching and mentoring
Yes.
into a place where, no matter the circumstances, we ask, is this action that I'm about to perform motivated by love? Is this action that I'm about to perform motivated by a respect for the basic dignity of my fellow man?
Yes.
Am I able to maintain my joy irrespective of the circumstances? Am I able to maintain my peace even under pressure? Am I able to stay patient even when provoked?
Yes. Yes.
Am I able to be kind to my fellow man, even though he may not deserve it? Am I able to be self controlled? All right. True professional success demands these things.
Wow.
These things define character. And you see in most mottos of police organizations integrity. All right. You see integrity and professionalism, or integrity or something. What is integrity?
Oh, yes.
Integrity comes from the Greek word, which spells out integer. And that speaks to wholeness.
Wholeness. Yes.
It speaks to one. That wholeness must start on your inside.
Wow.
And that is what, that wholeness in a human being is what integrity is. Integrity is not something you just post on police cars or post on in the mass media and the like. Integrity is something which needs to be refined and nurtured in the hearts of men. That is the long-term solution, and we must all be on that journey to manifest our integrity, because we all have that within us, but it needs to be unveiled. To me, that's the long-term solution, and that's on the personal level.
Yes.
It needs to happen in families. It needs to happen in churches. It needs to happen in schools. All right? From a system level perspective, technology. Let's evolve technological solutions which help us in our years of immaturity,
Yes.
when we may not be able to manifest the integrity required to discharge our office professionally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brother Kobe, I thank you for being on the show with me here on the Lucas Report. We want to get your wife to come up. You can come join your husband, and you can actually come through the camera. It's okay. As we're going to be wrapping up, and we thank all of our partners and sponsors for being on the show today. We're going to move the mic up. You're going to kind of have to scoot up. My question to be to you, I know that you're a mother of two boys, and looking at these tragedies that has happened lately, what can be the greatest lesson or education that you can give your two boys, knowing that this situation, you being a mother, I know you can sympathize to see no mother wants to hear that call that their son is assassinated, that their son has been murdered. What can you do as a mother to instill into your child, collectively with your husband, to tell them there is going to be such situations? Yes, we know why we have to tell your son at 9 and 10 years old as a mother about these situations, but they're going to have to know about these situations because it is happening. What can you instill and train and give your sons the education to kind of mitigate that risk and let them know this is what's going to happen? Police may stop you or will stop you in a point in time in your life. What can you instill into your children?
Well, first of all, thank you for having
absolutely.
us and inviting us. And this was his interview, but I don't mind answering that question because a large part of what my husband has been saying is that it starts at home. And a part of that training and allowing children to discover who they are, and I really enjoyed when he was saying that people need to focus on building themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Building them to let them know, you are an important life that matters.
That's right.
And having them approach themselves as being responsible for their environment, making good choices.
Right.
If you know it's a dangerous place, that's just kind of a given.
Right.
But then there are situations where you are going to have to face some unwarranted discrimination.
Right.
Some unwarranted approach, possibly from officer or an educator. There are different environments where people will try to play on their desire to dehumanize your black son and be willing to try to cut them down.
Right.
Well, prayerfully, they won't be able to cut down my kids. I know your mother and your father also instilled in you. You knew you know who you are.
Absolutely.
So that's the first step, letting them know to avoid dangerous situations. But when you are involved in something that is unwarranted, remember who you are.
Right.
Stand fast and be aware. Listen to what is being asked of you. Listen to what is being requested from you. The first thing that we do is get nervous.
Right.
but asking them, calm down, remember who you are.
Right.
I don't care who it is. And I'm like that. My son's and my 2-year-old already is very bold and very strong. He will tell you no. He will tell you I want that.
Yeah.
So just encouraging them to be strong. You've done your part.
Yeah.
You know who you are. You are not a victim.
Right.
You're more than a conqueror.
Absolutely.
And I want you to approach the situation wisely. Another thing that my husband just said, using wisdom, so that whatever is being asked of you, you are responding, you are being cautious, you are being careful, and never approach the situation like you are a victim.
Right.
Because I think right there, you're giving someone power.
Right.
So from that perspective, I'm very cautious to make sure that they know their worth and make sure that they know the value of respect of themselves first and then their environment, and being a leader in that environment, because you don't know what a person has gone through. Maybe they're afraid of you, like you
Right.
said. It could be your tone of voice, it could be your
Absolutely.
height, it could be your
Absolutely.
stature, and it could be your skin color. But don't let that affect the way that you respond. Stay calm, pay attention, and remember who you are. And like I said, prayerfully, we know that they're going to come out of the situation
Right. Right.
as a victorious
right.
in the situation.
Well, I thank the Boatengs for partnering with me and coming on the show today. Just before we close, I definitely want them to talk about African Diaspora Nation and how they can get in contact with you. We know we have a various group all across this world, not just in the United States, but we have listeners and watchers all across this great nation and across the world. So how can they connect with you and being part of your mission and your movement?
I think I'll let him answer that.
All right. So first of all, before I go further, let me thank you and your family for the work that you do in this community. When you talk about an example of an organization or a family which is interested in impacting the development of youth, right from cradle to adulthood, I think we've seen a great example in yourself and the family, right from schools, right from the church,
Yes.
and right from the community impact, entrepreneurship, and community development. I believe this is an example of the masterpiece and the gem that we have within ourselves that we must be manifesting. Once we manifest these things, the question of privilege becomes minimized, because we've put ourselves in a position where people won't have a choice but to respect what they see. All right. Now, if you want to get in touch with African Diaspora Nation, you can find us on Facebook. Just type in African with an N, African Diaspora Nation, and you should find a Facebook page. You can also go to our website, www.africandiasporanation.org, and I'm sure we can also put it on the link
Yes,
to your page, so
absolutely.
that interested viewers
Sounds great.
will be able to find us. But our mission is to build and coach and be the embodiment of a guiding light for a global African renaissance. That means citizen engagement for the educational, socio-economic, and spiritual upliftment of the black man
Yes.
everywhere in the world.
Well, Brother Kobe, again, I thank you.
Hey,
and
thanks
again,
for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
You are tuned in to the Lucas Report. On tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a special topic. Is it fraud or racism? A recent event from U.S. Representative Corinne Brown suggested her indictment last week was on fraud-related charges, and it's part of a larger problem with a legal system that targets blacks. So we're going to be talking about that. Is there a legal system that actually target high black political officials? We're going to be talking about that on tomorrow on the Lucas Report. God bless you. We love you. And remember, always with God, you're always empowered. God bless you.